Did you know that in the United States exists a place so cursed that it's actually illegal to go there? Deep in the hills of northwestern Connecticut, there's a place that doesn't exist on any modern map. No roads lead there, no signs point that way. And if you ask the locals about it, they'll tell you just one thing: stay away. The place is called Dudleytown, and according to legend, it's the most haunted location in New England. Some say it's cursed, others say something darker lives in the woods. But here's what we know for certain. Every single person who tried to build a life there either went insane, died under mysterious circumstances, or fled in absolute terror. So, what is Dudleytown? Let's find out. Alright, so to understand Dudleytown, we need to go back in time a little bit, nearly 900 years ago, to medieval England and a family whose name would become synonymous with tragedy. The Dudleys. In 1910, a man named Edmund Dudley was beheaded for treason against King Henry VII. His son, John Dudley, the Duke of Northumberland, tried to place Lady Jane Grey on the English throne. He was also beheaded. John's son, Robert Dudley, was accused of murdering his wife and became entangled in scandals involving Queen Elizabeth. Another son, Guilford Dudley, was executed alongside Lady Jane Grey. The pattern was clear. The Dudleys were screwed. They were not good. They had bad luck. By the early 1700s, members of the Dudley family wanted a fresh start, so they came to America, and in 1738, several Dudley descendants, Thomas Gideon and Barsley Dudley, purchased land in the Litchfield Hills of Connecticut. Now, the land they chose was really weird from the beginning. It sat in a valley known as the Dark Entry Forest, surrounded by three mountains: Coltsfoot, Woodbury, and Bald Mountain. The forest was so dense that even at noon, the sunlight barely came through the canopy. The whole place was dark. The Mohawk people who originally inhabited the area had long abandoned it, reportedly because they believed the land was cursed. But the Dudleys, ignored the warnings and went there and built a settlement anyway, because I guess even a curse is better than all the beheadings and things that were happening in England. And that's when all the weird things started happening. The first recorded incident happened to Gideon Dudley. His crops were failing repeatedly, not from drought or pests, but for no apparent reason. His livestock even died mysteriously, and then his wife began to act weird, speaking to people who weren't there and wandering off into the woods at night. Within a few years, she went completely insane. Gideon himself also died shortly after due to circumstances that were never fully explained. But all that's just coincidence, right? It's just bad luck for one family, one incident, chalk it up to luck, bad luck. I don't know, maybe this family was cursed. But there's one thing. It kept happening over and over and over. In 1774, a man named Nathaniel Carter moved to Dudleytown with his family. Now, within months, his wife was killed when she was struck by lightning, get this, inside of their home. The chances of that happening and lightning striking through a window or through the roof and coming down and hitting you have to be 1 in a bajillion. So Nathaniel, who was guilt-stricken and just grieving over his wife who had this freak accident, started spiraling into madness. His neighbors reported hearing him screaming in the middle of the night, claiming that demons were attacking him. Another settler named Abel Dudley watched his entire family die in a single week. He disappeared into the forest and was never seen again. So by the early 1800s, Dudleytown had a reputation. People whispered about it in nearby towns like Cornwall and Goshen. They said the land was bad, that it was poison, that something lived in those woods that just fed on human suffering. But people kept coming anyway, drawn by cheap land and the promise of a fresh start, the American dream that we all want. And they kept dying, losing their minds, or running away in the middle of the night. Now, by the mid-1800s, you might think that word would have gotten around and everybody would be like, hey, stay away from Dudleytown. But here's the thing, for a brief period, it actually thrived. At its peak around 1850, about 30 families lived there and called it home. There were farms, a few small businesses, and even a school. The settlement seemed to have turned a new leaf. Maybe the curse was just superstition. Maybe the previous tragedies were just the normal hardships of frontier life and early American development. But then, 1892 happened. A wealthy New York doctor named William Clark bought a property in Dudleytown as a summer retreat. They lived in New York, they had a busy life, and they were looking for just this small place to get away. So they came, visited it, fell in love with it, and his wife loved the area at first, the seclusion, and then Clark's brother came to stay with them. and Clark felt confident leaving the both of them because he had to return to New York, but that was a horrible mistake. When Clark came back 2 weeks later, he found his wife completely insane, sitting in a rocking chair just staring at nothing. She would never speak again, and the brother? Well, he died. The official cause was listed as accident or natural causes, but the circumstances once again were never fully explained. Clark later told people that the last thing his wife said before losing her mind was that she'd seen creatures emerging from the forest at night, things that weren't quite human. Some versions of the story claim she witnessed her brother-in-law's death, and that whatever she saw just shattered her mind completely and drove her to this point of insanity. Clark immediately moved his wife out of Dudleytown. He sold the property and took a massive L, but he never spoke about what happened there again. And his wife? Well, she spent the rest of her life in psychiatric care, never recovering from whatever happened in those 2 weeks that he was gone. Now, that same year, a man named Horace Greeley, who was a famous newspaper editor, visited friends in Dudleytown. What happened during that visit is unclear, but Greeley left abruptly and would later die by unaliving himself. Some historians claim his death had nothing to do with Dudleytown, but his friends insisted that he was never the same after that trip. He had become paranoid, claiming he was being watched by something he couldn't explain. So by 1900, Dudleytown was dying. Families were leaving faster than new ones arrived, and those who remained reported increasingly disturbing phenomena. Strange lights in the forest, sounds that didn't match any known animal, and an oppressive feeling of being watched constantly, just like everybody else who had suffered these unfortunate fate was reporting. One of the last residents, a farmer named John Brophy, told people in Cornwall that something was hunting him. He claimed that every night he could hear footsteps circling his house, but whenever he looked outside, there was nothing there. He also abandoned his farm in 1912, leaving behind all of his possessions. Fast forward a few years, and by 1920, Dudleytown was completely abandoned. The forest moved in quickly, swallowing all the buildings, the roads, and all the evidence that anyone had lived in this town. If you looked at it today, all the forest is overgrown, and all of the once thriving settlement that existed for a brief period of time is gone. So what was actually going on in Dudleytown? Was it cursed, or is there a rational explanation for everything that's happened? So let's start with what we know scientifically. The valley where Dudleytown sat is geologically unusual. It's surrounded by mountains that are rich in magnetite and other magnetic materials. Some researchers have suggested that this could create unusual electromagnetic fields that might affect human psychology, the dead zones and other things. I know that this is a big phenomenon in the Appalachian Mountains, and if you want a video on all the crazy shit that happens there, let me know down in the comments, because I love researching things about Appalachia. Studies have shown that exposures to certain electromagnetic frequencies can cause hallucinations, paranoia, and feelings of being watched. So that in itself could explain some of the going mad that people were experiencing when they were up in Dudleytown. There's also the darkness itself. The valley's position between three mountains means it receives a lot less sunlight than all the surrounding areas. So obviously you're in a darker area and your body is trying to adapt and figure it out. I don't know. I feel like I'm more paranoid in the dark. I'm more cautious of my surroundings, and a lot of people, when they're in the darkness, can see things that aren't really there. So take that and take the electromagnetic frequencies, and some weird stuff could be happening in your brain. There's also seasonal affective disorder, which is depression caused by a lack of sunlight, which could also explain some of the mental health crises. And then there's the soil. Modern analysis has shown that the soil in the valley is really poor in nutrients and high in certain minerals that could have contaminated the water sources. So in turn, this could have led to some chronic heavy metal poisoning and caused more neurological symptoms like hallucinations and psychosis. You take that, you pair it with all the darkness that's there, you pair it with the electromagnetic frequencies, and some weird stuff could be happening. So, maybe Dudleytown wasn't cursed. Maybe it was just a weird mix of bad geography, environmental factors, and the normal hardships of the 18th and 19th century life that got exaggerated into this legend. Except one thing. Here's where it gets weird again. In the 1920s, the land was purchased by a group that formed the Dark Entry Forest Association. Their stated purpose was to preserve the land, But they've also gone to really extreme lengths to keep people out. The area is heavily patrolled and trespassers are prosecuted aggressively, and the association refuses to discuss any of the history of Dudleytown publicly. Why? I mean, if it's just old ruins and forest and there's natural phenomena that can explain everything that happened, why are you going to buy all this land and keep everything secret? People have tried to visit it anyway, of course, though. Urban explorers, paranormal investigators, curious teenagers, and many of them report the same thing: an overwhelming sense of dread, electronic equipment failing, the feeling of being followed by something that's just outside of their vision. One of the most well-known incidences occurred in 2012 when a group of college students snuck into the area with cameras. They posted the footage online and it showed them becoming increasingly agitated as they explored the ruins. One girl claimed she got grabbed by her ankle and another saw a figure watching them from the trees. They left in a panic in less than an hour after arriving. The strange part? Their camera recordings showed significant audio anomalies, voices that didn't belong to any of them, weird strange frequencies that audio experts just could never explain. And more recently, in 2019, a hiker who got lost accidentally wandered into Dudleytown and reported that his GPS stopped working, his phone died despite being fully charged, and he experienced what he described as time distortion, feeling like he had been walking for an hour when only 20 minutes had gone by. So, what's the truth about Dudleytown? Well, you have option one. It was a perfect storm of bad luck, bad location, and environmental factors, and just really bad stuff with human psychology that created a legend far more dramatic than reality. The curse was just confirmation bias, and people expected bad things to happen, so they noticed and remembered them more when they did. And it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. They expected bad, they got bad. Or option two, there's something genuinely unusual about that location, whether it's geological, electromagnetic, or something we don't understand yet. That valley affects people in measurable, documented ways. The Mohawk people knew it. The settlers learned it the hard way. And maybe the Dark Entry Forest Association knows it too, which is why they're so adamant about keeping people out. Or there's option three. Some places are just bad. Maybe not cursed in a supernatural sense, but wrong in a way that goes beyond simple explanation. Places where the veil is thinner between the living and the dead, where something dark resonates with the human mind and brings out the worst in all of us. The forest has reclaimed Dudleytown now. The stone foundations of houses are crumbling beneath the soil. The roads have vanished. In another generation or two, there will be no physical evidence that anyone ever lived there. And maybe that's a good thing. But the stories, they're still here. And every few years, someone else tries to visit, drawn in by the curiosity or the skepticism or the simple human need to face down fear. Most people that visit leave convinced that something is wrong with that place. And a few of them don't leave at all. Or maybe they just chose the wrong valley at the wrong time. That's up for you to decide. But either way, the darkness is still there. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to commit aggravated assault on the like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and let me know down below what you want me to cover next.